Good morning, everybody. Welcome. This is the Housing Stability Council meeting, Oregon Housing Stability Council meeting for March 7th. We've just opened up our virtual meeting room, so we'll give people a chance to join us. Once again, we've got well over 100 folks signed up for what's becoming the hottest program on the internet. Now, today, you don't need to do anything to adjust your computer. Unfortunately, a lot of us are going to show up in name only. There seems to be some kind of Zoom glitch and we don't get to see everyone, but as far as we can tell, we can hear everyone. All right, we have 143 people I see in the room, so let's get things started, and I will officially call to order the March 7th, 2025 meeting of the Oregon Housing Stability Council, and we begin with a roll call.
Thank you, Chair Hall. Councilmember DeFontorum.
Present.
Councilmember Farrell.
Present.
Chair Hall.
Present.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Mena.
Here.
Councilmember Rogers.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Meehan.
Here.
Thank you. And for the record, Councilmember Willard has been excused from today's meeting. We do have quorum, Chair Hall.
Wonderful. Next agenda item, review and follow-up action items. Do we have anything on this agenda item today?
Yes, Chair Hall. One moment. Let me switch over. There are three pending open topics for Affordable Rental Housing Division, the LIHTC and ORCA update, as well as the Preservation Strategy Framework, all of which Natasha will be giving an update at the beginning of her Affordable Rental Housing Division presentation today. We have two open topics for Home Ownership Division, one LIFT Program Framework and OAHTC expansion for home ownerships. And Keeble will be giving an update on these as well at the beginning of his home ownership presentation today.
Great. Any questions, comments from council? Okay, we roll on into the chair's report. The other day, I was presented with an unusual opportunity to reflect on my own values, missions, and goals, and how they align with our collective work here. It came about because of a Facebook post that I shared, a quote from Rosa Parks. I believe we are here on the planet Earth to live, grow up, and do what we can to make this world a better place for all people to enjoy freedom. Well, someone new to my Facebook friends list said, "Tell us what you're doing to accomplish this." I said, "Okay, challenge accepted." I said that both as a community volunteer and elected official, I'd spent my adult life helping people gain the tools they need to lead happier and more productive lives. Not only work in addictions prevention and treatment, mental health, public health, and UNGERS, and other things, but always at the core of my work has been getting roofs over people's heads. That's it. So simple, yet so powerful. You know, we wouldn't be here if we didn't all know how important shelter and then stable housing are, helping people lift themselves out of poverty. Housing opens the door to so many things, access to employment and health care, and others that help people not just survive, but thrive. I feel a great sense of mission in this work, as I'm sure everyone at this table does, and as to all of you joining us in our virtual call today. It gives me a needed sense of continuity to realize this work started long before any of us came along and will still be here after we're gone. Hopefully, we're going to continue to see the encouraging results that are already happening and are going to continue to happen. We've got the big momentum in Oregon. The governor's recommended budget is reflective of some of the most critical housing investments to both boost supply and address the cost of housing. I'm 65, so I guess I'm in the home stretch of this mission, but I am confident about our collective future. Thanks. Now, director's report, and pinch hitting capably is Caleb Yant today for Director Bell. Take it away, sir.
Great, thank you so much, Chair Hall, Housing Stability Council members. We just tried to make a change, so maybe we could try our videos. It looks like that change worked. And so it's great to start seeing some faces here. I was getting way too many internal Teams message saying that I was the only face that people were seeing. And so I'm glad that can change. As Chair Hall said, Director Bell is traveling right now. And so I had just 3 quick items that I wanted to bring up as kind of an acting director update for the director update. First, I really want to acknowledge the ongoing changes at the federal level and speak a little bit to what we're doing at OHCS related to that. We're actively assessing the actions and trying to understand the impacts that they might have on Oregon, they might have on the programs that we administer. We know that HUD, in addition to other federal funders that fund many of the programs that we administer at OHCS and of course housing and homeless services programs across the state will have cuts. We know those will include staffing reductions at HUD's Oregon field offices. We don't yet know the extent. We don't know the impact. I think many of us are in the same place where we're trying to understand what that is. So for OHCS, want to give just some updates on what we know and what we are doing in this time of unknowns. First, we have not seen any impact to our established programs. Just to be really clear, we have access to all of the federal programs. We're still able to get draws. We're still able to have things processed. So at this point, we have not seen any impacts to established OHCS programs. And we're monitoring those programs very closely, and really working to quickly understand if that is to change, whether that be access to funding, but we're also working to monitor and really document it, but monitor the many operational dependencies that we have on our federal funders, things like approvals, things like daily draws or weekly or quarterly, things like subsidy layering reviews, things that must be processed from an operational perspective to make sure the programs continue, that the developments can close, that the services that are funded through federal funds are still reaching Oregonians. We have created an external webpage to provide up-to-date information. We'll make sure that it's available. We're also working really closely with the governor's office and with our statewide counterparts to make sure that all information is kind of coordinated from an executive branch, perspective. Bottom line, our agency is committed to serving Oregonians across the housing continuum, and we will continue to operate at the state level to advance the housing progress that works for all Oregonians, as we know. So there's a lot of unknowns, but that is some of the steps that we are taking. The second piece that I wanted to share in my update is really related to the fact, kind of pivoting from the unknowns to Saturday being International Women's Day. And it's a day to celebrate women in our lives, to celebrate their strength, their leadership, their wisdom. It's also a chance for us to reflect on how our espoused values show up in support of women. As Oregon's Housing Finance Agency, as an agency that is undeterred by the turmoil, the unknowns, and the political and social spheres, excuse me, although fears might be an accurate word as well. We are committed to remaining steadfast in our values of housing stability for all Oregonians, particularly those who have been historically left behind. And going into this International Women's Day is a chance to reflect on those values. According to the Interagency Council on Homelessness, 75% of unhoused adults who are members of families with children are women. And the majority of those are women of color. Women face higher rates of housing insecurity than men. Women encounter intersecting challenges, including unequal pay, unpaid caregiving responsibilities, lack of affordable housing, discriminatory policies. And despite the unequal playing field, despite earning less on average than men, women in our lives continue to show us what's possible. There was a New York Times article a couple weeks ago that flagged that single women in the US own more homes than single men in 47 of 50 states, despite being paid less on average. The single homeownership rate for women is greater than men in 47 of 50 states. As I reflect on successes, challenges, the power of women in my life, including 2 middle school daughters that I have, I am urged on by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a quote that she said, which is, "As women achieve power, the barriers will fall. As society sees what women can do, as women see what women can do, there will be more women out there doing things, and we'll all be better off for it." And so I just wanted to make a few comments on that as we reflect how our values show up as we look at International Women's Day. The last update that I have, I intend to turn it over to our Ledge Director, Jill Gray, another amazingly strong woman, to provide an update on what is happening right now in the Oregon Legislature.
Thank you, Caleb and Chair Hall. And once again, I'm Jill Gray. I'm the Government Relations Manager for OHCS, and I'm joined by my colleague, Tanisha. And Tanisha, would you just take a moment to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, Tanisha Rosas, she, her pronouns. I work with affordable rental housing and expanded my portfolio to include local governments as well.
All right, we have a session update that we're going to give. I know we have limited time today, so we're going to give you a lot of information here, but just please know that we're always here to answer questions as well. So Tanisha, would you be so good as to pull up? We have a very, very few number of slides. But one of the first things we wanted to make sure we do is, I believe we neglected to go over this last month, and that is that this year we are in a long session. And what does that mean? I know many people have been through sessions before, but we also have lots of new people joining us. So to make sure that we're all on the same page, Tanisha and I are going to go over just a few session key dates. So we're going to go to the next slide. Thank you, Tanisha. Oregon has a session every year. Every odd numbered year is a long session year. Every even numbered year is a short session year. So since we are in an odd numbered year, we are in a long session. That means that bills, that very first line, bills dropped, just means that bills are introduced and given a bill number. That started happening in early January. And then this session started on January 21st. This session will go until June, and in order to meet the deadline of getting all our business wrapped up in June, there are several deadlines that occur throughout session. We are quickly approaching the very first deadline. That first deadline we're approaching is on March 21st, where every bill has to have a work session scheduled. So in order for bills to keep making progress this legislative session, they must have a hearing and a work session in committee. By March 21st, they have to have been scheduled for that work session in their committee. This is an important date for us, and we're going to go into it in a little bit more detail in our next slides because by March 21st, we're going to have a much better idea of those bills that are moving forward this session and those bills that aren't. And I promise I'm not going to go through the rest of these deadline dates, but just know we're coming up to our first session deadline date, and there will be more as we go through session. So Tanisha, thank you. We're going to give you just some highlights of some bills that we're working on. This, again, is not an exhaustive list, but just some highlights of what's happening in our world over at the Capitol. So on this page, as you can see, these are ones that either OHCS has introduced this session, or it's one that the governor's office introduced, and we are supporting the governor's office in that bill. So the very first one we talked about last month is a bill we asked to have introduced, House Bill 3034, which clarifies in statute that OHCS is the administrator of the emergency housing account. This bill does not make any changes to how funds are deposited into that account, nor the disbursements from that account, but it does make it really clear that the department is the administrator of the emergency housing account. This bill actually already passed the House, and it has moved over to the Senate. And in fact, this is late breaking news that we received word yesterday evening that the Senate Housing Committee would like to hear this bill next week, which is amazing progress considering we are only about the 7th week in session. So that bill is making speedy progress through this session. The next bill is House Bill 3035. This is, again, a bill we asked to have introduced. It codifies in statute our flex lending program. We started offering flex lending a few years ago, but have been doing it off of an exception, and it had been identified as a risk by several entities, including our State Department of Justice, that really that program should be in statute. And so House Bill 3035 is doing that. It is codifying our flex lending program in statute. This bill also has already passed the House, and it has moved over to the Senate, and we're expecting that we probably also will be receiving a call pretty soon from the Senate Housing Committee to have a hearing on this bill. So both bills have been making really, really great progress this session. Tanisha, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about the next one.
Yeah. House Bill 3036 is our expansion of the Oregon Affordable Housing Tax Credit. Right now it's used to buy down the cost of rent for residents, and now those dollars saved because of the tax credit could also be used for resident services. That is the ultimate goal for this bill. It is still in the House committee, and that is not a bad thing. Our partners, as I'll touch more on later, have a lot of ideas and energy around some very important topics, one of which is related to the affordable housing tax credit. And so they see this, our priority bill, as a useful tool for them. And so it is in a good spot. The chair is protecting and keeping that bill strategically. So we are further behind than my colleagues at the agency, but we are not in a bad spot because the chair is very aware of this bill and is very strategically focused on this bill. And then I'll pass it over back to Jill.
Thank you. The last bill on the slide is House Bill 2139, and we also talked about this bill last month. This bill is, there are some limitations with BAFI-NATO, and one of the fairly consistent comments we received from tribal communities is the need for a much more flexible, ongoing funding so that they are able to determine their housing priority needs and use those funds to those priorities they have identified. House Bill 2139 is doing that. It is creating a new fund. It is the Tribal Housing Grant Fund, I believe is the technical name for it, but it is doing exactly what our tribal partners have told us they need, which is creating a fund that would have an ongoing dedicated source of funds for the 9 federally recognized tribes that would be much more flexible so that they can use those funds for the housing priorities they have identified. This bill had a hearing in the House Housing Committee in February, and they passed it out of the House Housing Committee, and it is now in Ways and Means. And we expect it to sit there for a little while, which is totally fine. That is a pretty normal progression of a bill going to Ways and Means. So it is also making quite good progress this session. All right, Tanisha. And then again, these are just some highlights, definitely not a full list of what we're working on, but just a few items that we thought Housing Stability Council members might like to hear about. So the very first one is House Bill 3644. This is a bill that the governor has introduced. This is her bill that is in response to maintaining a statewide shelter system. There was a work group last year, governor's office, us, partners, all participated in this work group, really trying to figure out sustainable funding for a statewide shelter system and making improvements, whether that be data collection or maybe funding things in a different way than we had before to respond to today's needs. This bill is the direct result of that work group. It contains all of the recommendations from that work group. The bill had a hearing, gosh, that was just about a week ago, and it hasn't been scheduled yet for a work session, but we fully expect it will be, and that bill will be moving on. The next bill is Senate Bill 814. Before session started, one of our sister state agencies, the Oregon Youth Authority, came to talk to us about a program we administer. It is a long-term rental assistance program. I believe it is known by the acronym RAY, the Rental Assistance for Youth program. That program helps youth and young adults up to the age of 25 with housing stability. And the Oregon Youth Authority wanted to make it really clear in statute that those youth and young adults who are exiting from Oregon Youth Authority custody are eligible for that program. And so Senate Bill 814 is really doing that. It is making it very clear in statute that those youth and young adults up to age 25 who are exiting from Oregon Youth Authority custody are eligible for the rent assistance program for young adults. And then Tanisha, I'm gonna let you talk about MERL.
Yeah. So I know that the Affordable Rental Housing Division has talked about the Moderate Income Revolving Loan Fund. One of the governor's bills this year included a cleanup bill for Senate Bill 1537. That was the original bill MERL was in. Included in that bill are some technical fixes that assessors and cities brought, and they ran them by us, and they are workable. But I just wanted to highlight that as an example of this session, as Jill mentioned earlier, we are in the pre-first deadline world. What that means is everything is still moving and everything is still valid. So on the affordable rental housing side and local government side, Senate Bill 48 is the only concrete thing I know is moving and is, of course, a governor's office bill. But as of even on Tuesday, a bunch of packages from our partners changed bill numbers, changed purposes. And so to honor and respect your time, I wanted to highlight those things after the March 21st deadline when I have a little bit more clarity of what is actually concretely moving forward in the legislature. There is a lot of things, just a little more background. There are historical number of bills filed by this point in session. And so Legislative Council was given a lot of work to do. And so historically, there has not been as many housing placeholders as we've seen as well. And so even bills that I knew were moving were going to go into some placeholder that was not named yet. And that is still fact and true. And so as we move forward in session, you will see more updates on bills because we as an agency will get more clarity. We have also been, because of the work of our predecessors and Jill and Director Bell and Deputy Director Yant, been involved and invited into a lot more conversations than we have in the past. So even if we don't have permission to support a bill, we've been given the leeway to make sure bills work if they are in fact passed. So know that your team and your directors have done a lot of work to make these unnamed bills work for the agency if the legislature chooses to pass them. And we will get a lot more clarity after the 21st. And I will be able to send you hopefully not as long as a list of bills as I would have to now. But I'll pass it back to Jill for the rest of the bills.
Thank you, Tanisha. So once again, we'll be back next month and we'll have a lot more clarity about particularly the bills impacting affordable rental housing and can give you a much more detailed list of those bills. But for today, I will wrap up with 2 bills that impact homeownership. And the first one, House Bill 3188, as you can see, it is starting a new programs directing OHCS to establish a program to guarantee against losses in mortgage loans that lenders extend to first-time home buyers. So what exactly does that mean? So there were some community partners, including credit unions and banks and legislators, who really wanted to have a bill that would be focused on mortgage insurance and helping homeowners with yet another barrier that can be between them and homeownership. This bill was originally intended to go to one of our sister state agencies, the Department of Consumer and Business Services, but legislators and us and others decided that it probably makes the most sense to come to OHCS. So we've been working with sponsors and community members and other partners out there on this bill, making some amendments to it so it can come to OHCS and we can start this new program. We'll have some more information as we move on because, again, we're still working on this bill, so it's a bit in flux at the moment, but just letting people know there is a lot of interest in helping with homeownership. The last bill on this slide, House Bill 3144, has to do with manufactured parks. So there is a lot of interest from legislators on helping our community members who are living in manufactured homes. One of the programs that OHCS administers is an assessment on manufactured home parks and the home itself, and those dollars are used for programs here, including one of the programs being a mediation between homeowners and the park owners, trying to help in whatever way we can to resolve disputes and also keep people in stable housing in manufactured homes. That assessment had a deadline. It was going to sunset, I believe, in January of 2027, and one of our legislative partners, Representative Marsh, put in a bill to extend the sunset until January 2nd of 2031. That program has been really, really successful in resolving disputes and helping keep people in their manufactured homes. So we really want to make sure that program continues. I think that's it for our bills, but before we turn it back over to Deputy Director Yant, I will say that we have confirmation on the dates for our agency budget presentation over at the legislature. So every 2 years during every long session, each agency, including OHCS, has to go and give a presentation to the Ways and Means Committee about our agency, about the programs and services we administer, and the funding requests we are making to the legislature. Our turn to do that is coming up very quickly. It is going to start on March 20th and go into the next week, and we will be presenting in front of the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Transportation and Economic Development. If you would like any more information about that, please let Tanisha and me know. We are happy to get you the link to stream that. All right, and with that, Deputy Director Yant, we're going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Director Gray. Chair Hall, council members, that's the end of the acting director report. Happy to turn it back over to you or answer any questions or take any comments or feedback from council.
Okay, let's open it up to council questions, comments, and feedback right now. Well, looks like another busy agenda. It is nice to see so much momentum around housing and shelter and homelessness. Good work, and I know you'll keep us informed and engaged if we can be of help. Right now, we move on to the Affordable Rental Housing Division, and we have one public hearing before we get started here on this agenda item.
Yeah,
And
Chair Hall, I
Yes.
am wondering, because I do want to regroup on some of my follow-up discussion with you, so I'm wondering
Okay.
if I should do that in advance of the public hearing.
yeah, well, okay, why don't we do that? Sounds good to me.
Okay, yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I realized my update is not on the agenda, so I had to bring that, connect the pieces there. So, good morning, Housing Stability Council Chair Hall, Caleb, or Deputy Director Yant. My name is Natasha Detweiler-Davy. I'm the Director of Affordable Rental Housing, and I use she, her pronouns. Nice to see you all on this. I think it was going to be a Sunday, Friday, so we'll see if that holds. So I had a few items that I have both kind of sent a follow-up by email on, and I wanted to just take some space on here just to loop back on. I think the first was, conversations that we've had, I think starting last year and kind of continuing forward around how is it we want to talk about the costs, what are the costs, what are the drivers of costs for housing in our systems. And so I sent some of those pieces on as different reference, I think wanting to, and so I'll just kind of cover the essence of that here in terms of our work as we are looking at costs of projects as they are coming in. We absolutely benchmark to our key performance measure, which looks at square foot costs. But we have also built out a predictive cost model using our own project data and information to align with the current market. And I think there is quite a lot of different places of influences around costs in terms of regional construction market, geographic considerations, how the building is built, site conditions, and the unit mix, all of those different factors. Layered onto that, what is going on in the market in terms of the supply chain and other critical workforce factors, and all of those as really key and critical influencers. And so those are the dynamics that we continue to involve and live within. And so I think as you so I've sent you some of that information around both our key performance measures. Those are the measures that we report on an annual basis to the legislature, as well as our predictive cost model, looking at what an average cost for a project unit is, which is upwards of, at this point, $430,000 a unit for a project built in the metro area when we're looking at kind of a general sized project for OHCS at this point in time. One of the other conversations that we have had that I wanted to loop back on, I think, is last week's conversation around preservation and how are we approaching preservation, in particular acquisition, the acquisition of projects where perhaps bridge financing was involved, or where portfolios are being sold. So as I sent on, we have an established preservation framework, which really tries to prioritize the limited subsidy that we have to support preservation into high critical risk categories across different types of preservation projects. And I think that as we are applying that, if a project is at risk of loss and it is acquired using bridge financing, that itself wouldn't preclude it from still being considered at that, at the risk category it would have had it not used that bridge financing if it comes to apply to us within a couple of years. If it's then 10 years later, then it has a different set of terms to apply to it. And and I think I also shared the, current funding that we have available, which I shared earlier this week, also with our stakeholders in our partner call. And those are, gives us the bounds for what we are able to do. I'm really excited that we have our qualified allocation plan finalized. We have our tax credits now offered. And in that vein, we have private activity bonds and other resources, including preservation, that are able to be leveraged with those funds. And so those are certainly all projects that could be seeking either to resyndicate with just tax credits or to find other resource combinations. I'm also very hopeful that we will have additional preservation investment this legislative session to allow us to continue to drive that work forward, both on a risk of loss because it's expiring and all of the critical financial and physical issues that projects are experiencing, I think, on a acute level at this point in time, to be able to really ensure that we can have concerted impact around there. And so my aim is that as we understand what that legislative investment will be for this next biennia, we'll have an opportunity to bring back all of the, current status of all of the ongoing conversations that we are having, and the team is having and driving in related to the preservation space, to be able to talk with them about that here at a time when we can kind of think about where do we want to focus and ensure that we're having the biggest impact that we can to provide stability to really not only the owners and operators, but the tenants who rely on housing that they are in today, to ensure that there's ability for that stability to continue. And then I think last month also a theme of the last few months probably is, how we are looking at readiness and really trying to prioritize being able to put funding to projects first that can move forward first. And part of our 4% application right now that we have is to have a screen for projects where we are going to be committing resources first that can use our available 2025 private activity bonds. And that means that as they are applying, they will need to be have a burden of proof that they can demonstrate that they can close this calendar year. And I think we're trying to say not December, but show it all works by November, so that we can really be moving all of that body of work forward to make sure that we are committing as much of the available private activity bonds resources as we can to be able to dedicate to affordable housing development. Yesterday, the team had a webinar. I think heard an update from Kim Travis just a little bit ago that over 150 participants were in that webinar. It was a very active conversation. They'll be working on a technical advisory to follow up on a lot of the different great questions that were being asked, and flagging, a lot of new learning and experience navigating with Grace and through a change of process, but very excited to see projects move through and remain committed to continuing to evolve where we see the need to do so. And I think as our next couple projects that we have today, we just have one solid agenda item here, are funded through the ORCA. And I think as we have regularly also touched on, wanting to ensure that we are seeing projects demonstrate the progress through funding that we anticipated and really do require. I think as we're doing that, we are continuing to learn. I think making sure that we are building, working to build more, highly impactful touch points for projects so that they are really acutely aware of what that expectation means in terms of completing through that financial review process within 6 months, wanting that to mean that, you don't wait 6 months to submit, but that you're really actively chipping away at that. And that 6 months becomes the backstop versus the place that you're performing to. And I think it's a place of learning for all sides. And I think that we're doing it with high integrity, and also knowing that we need to be probably spelling out more periods of clarity around what is a remedy and what are the timeliness kind of factors that we want to be doing within that. And I think we are actively experiencing and doing all of that. And I am really excited to have a new cohort of 4% projects that will be able to move forward with this current application to, further test that and try to practice some of our skills that we're building as we go. And so I think that was the essence of my feedback on the items that I had. I don't know if there are any kind of questions certainly now or follow-up that I can be bringing back for future conversations, I certainly welcome. And so Chair Hall, I defer if you want to open for conversation or move into the public hearing for the project applications.
You're on mute, Chair Hall.
Thanks. Let's see if the council has any questions or feedback right now. If not, let's move into the public hearing. This time, I would like to convene the Housing Stability Council in a public hearing to accept comments in accordance with ORS 456.561. And we are now ready for presentation, discussion, and vote. But first, we will see if there is anybody. I believe I saw there was one person signed up who wanted to speak on this hearing.
That's correct, Chair Hall. Lainey Morrell.
And Lane, are you online with us?
Yep. Yes, I am. Chair Hall,
Okay.
council members, can you hear me?
Yes, okay. Take it away when you're ready.
So the reason I put in the request to speak is that we encountered a somewhat of a disagreement or misunderstanding as between us and OHCS concerning the interaction of the LIFT programs, additional subsidy for housing units for incomes served that are lower than 60%, and how that may interact with the OAHTC program, which also achieves the rent reduction to enable us to serve lower AMI families. It comes down to page 7 of the ORCA manual, which uses the terms incomes served as the touchstone for being eligible for the increased subsidy for serving lower AMI categories. And the term restricted to, which is a different term, but and one that has a different meaning for developers. So this had a potentially large impact on, well, it could have an impact on the 73 Foster project because it is apparently seeking both the extra subsidy for serving 30% units with 22 of its units in the project. And we had done a similar thing and were concerned about not getting the ability to reduce the rents as low as we wanted to align with our Head Start classroom in our co-located early learning center. However, in the interim, we have had a spirited dialogue with OHCS, and through that have been shown how we can achieve our goals in a way that coincides with the OHCS interpretation of the incomes served on page 7 of the ORCA manual. And therefore, I just want to say that I'm grateful to management and our production analysts at OHCS for working through this lack of common understanding and getting us to a point where we can pretty much achieve the goals we set out to achieve. So thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Anybody else to be heard in the public hearing? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and then continue with presentation, discussion, and action.
Thank you again, Housing Stability Council, and I just for a brief in terms of the public comment from Lane, who is leading a project at the coast, which is very exciting. I think this is part of the learning process where we are not doing the deep financial review at the same time as that upfront policy review. And I think what that means is that as we are applying additional scrutiny to that financial pro forma, and asking those questions, finding that there's times when there are just misunderstandings around the way the resources work. And I think the functional issue there is that while OHTC does pass through resources to serve lower incomes for a period of up to 20 years, the length of that OHTC resource, we don't consider that rent-assisted units that would effectively ensure that that those units are secured to serve the lower income households. And so I think we'll see whether we, depending on the strategies that we'll move forward with that project, whether we will need to bring an informational update back to Housing Stability Council to make sure that the on the record version of the project is exactly what it is. The shift is not in any way around the population served or what the project is aiming and intending to do, but was what are the units restricted at versus who is being served by and prioritized. And so I think, again, this is an opportunity to work in collaborative partnership with our developers to make sure that we are bringing all of our best thinking to the table to make sure that we can continue to foster that partnership. And so I appreciate both the testimony and also the learning opportunity of as we are having these pieces evaluated a little bit in a different cadence than our prior processes, which would have ensured that we were seeing every detail all at the same time to provide that on the front end. And so with that, I will transition us over to Amy Cole to talk through our 2 projects that are being recommended to be funded through the ORCA.
Thanks, Natasha. Good morning, Chair Hall, Housing Stability Council members, and Deputy Director Yant. I'm Amy Cole, the Assistant Director of Development Resources, and I'll be presenting 2 ORCA projects for your consideration today. I will start with just giving some statistics about what we're seeing in impact assessment right now for the ORCA. We have 17 projects in impact assessment that are under review, 95 projects in the impact assessment step overall. 46 of those are for-profit-led projects, 53 are nonprofit-led projects. There are 11 housing authority projects, 1 tribal-led, and 1 other. Next slide, please. Right, the projects that we'll be talking about today are 73 Foster and River Road. 73 Foster is 64 units. It is sponsored by REACH. It's located in Portland, and the request is for $13.4 million in LIFT and $6.8 million in PSH capital. Next slide. So REACH has in place strategies, plans, and partnerships to reach and serve and work with underserved BIPOC community members, and REACH has plans to work with APANO, El Programa, and Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization, also known as IRCO, for translation and materials. REACH Permanent Supportive Housing will provide PSH services and will focus on assessing and identifying programs and services that meet tenants' unique cultural needs. REACH and their general contractor commit to reaching their MWESB participation rate. They know it's expected, have plans for reaching their goal, and OHCS will monitor their progress. Next slide. Thanks. River Road Apartments is 48 units, or will be 48 units, sponsored by Cascade Housing Association. It is located in Eugene, and the request is for $15.6 million in LIFT. This project, or this sponsor, has in place strategies and plans, partnerships to reach and serve and work with underserved BIPOC community members. The developer is committed to advancing racial equity within its own organization and with their externally facing work. They integrate DEI principles into their marketing and customer services. The project has contracted with St. Vincent de Paul to provide on-site culturally responsive resident services. And the development team is working to develop partnerships with local culturally specific organizations as well. Cascade Housing Association and their general contractor commit to reaching their MWESB participation rate. They know it's expected and have plans for reaching their goal, and OHCS will monitor their progress. So if approved for funding today, projects will receive a letter of interest, a letter of intent, from OHCS, and will move to the financial eligibility step of ORCA. And from there, projects will have 6 months to complete the requirements of the financial eligibility step and to move into the commitment step. In financial eligibility, a detailed development budget and pro forma will be analyzed by the production team to ensure that each project meets financial and underwriting standards and to ensure that projects are leveraging debt and other resources that justify and support the state investment. The final award amount for each project will be arrived at through the underwriting process in the financial eligibility step. All right, and happy to answer any questions and appreciate the consideration of the motion on page 4 of your packet.
Council. Questions? Councilmember Lee to be followed by Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Chair Hall. Thanks, Amy and Natasha, for the presentation. I have one comment and one question. The project in Eugene, when I look at the information shared around equity and racial justice, seems to be in a state of moving towards rather than actually having achieved. And I'm questioning that. And would love to hear a little bit more about the thinking behind it, particularly, and you don't compare the two projects. When I look at the first project, there are named partners, there are specific organizations, et cetera, et cetera. When I look at the Eugene project, there is aspirational language about who they want to be themselves as an organization, and working with St. Vincent de Paul, which I would not characterize as a community-based, culturally specific organization. So I wonder about that and what the thinking is. It's fine for people to be in process, right? Or to be aspiring to something or moving in a direction. I just want to understand a little bit more about how that was assessed, because at this point, we've been in discussion with them for quite a while through the ORCA process. So just interested in that. And my second question is, we're referring specifically to MWESB expectations and requirements. Is that going to present any challenge for these projects moving forward in the subsequent contracts? Thank you.
Certainly. So I think I'm wondering, Roberto, if you have some thoughts around this is a new sponsor that we are doing work with. I also think, Councilmember Lee, this is a really neat thing because now we are bringing these early, and so being able to continue through and I think understand where we could be providing additional follow-up coming out of this conversation to say that we are, be able to provide informational briefings to you moving forward. And I think what I would, aspire to, these are projects that we are hoping to, that have committed to sprinting to financial close, to close by the end of June. And so I do think, I'll be optimistic that we would approve them with the contingent that we bring back to you additional information and detail, and we can, I think, put that into our next Housing Stability Council packet for your information as a follow-up and update. I do know that we, they were evaluated using the, information within the impact assessment, and so I don't know that we're going to be able to speak acutely off the top of our heads on all of those details, but that they were able to demonstrate that they were being responsive to all of those top priorities. And it's also a place where we have somebody new stepping in and trying to pull projects and team together in all of those partnerships. And so I think we do believe that it is meaningful, but I think maybe what we will want to do is be able to have some follow-up that can really give you broader information around that. And Roberto or Amy, do you have any other thoughts to
Natasha, let me
add
just,
at this
before
moment?
we, Natasha, before we leave that, let me just clarify. My comments were not in any way, shape, or form to say we shouldn't take action. We should hold, they're really, again, in the spirit of, I notice these things, you notice things. We keep talking with each other, and that's how we're going to move forward. So just to clarify, I have nothing against this, like I'm not speaking against the project or the proposal. I'm just like engaging with you.
Certainly, yeah, absolutely. And I think we can, well, I take it with that spirit, and I appreciate the clarity around that. And also, again, I think it is, this has been for how many years, the place where we are showing you either really light touch information or it's at the closing table. And I think we have built ourselves some space here to be able to, and of course, these are fast moving ones, but I think the idea that we should, the request being for additional detail and able to have conversation around this, I think we can do that. But Roberto, I see that you've unmuted.
Well, thank you. Just for the record, Roberto Franco, I'm the Deputy Director for Development in our division. And yes, with the Eugene project and the sponsor, they're relatively new to us, meaning working with us. So in that spirit of including other players in the creation of affordable housing, then we're sharing with them what our expectations are, what we would like to achieve together. So we make ourselves available to them and saying, this is how we need to move the projects forward and keeping the residents in mind. So that with an approval today, that will also continue as they move through the process and seeing where they are in helping us meet our goals. So I think we welcome them to be part of our work here. So in that welcoming, we also offer them the support that we can provide in helping us achieve our goals. But we'll keep that in mind, and then we appreciate the comment as well.
Okay. Anyone else? Let's see. Yes, Councilmember Harris, you've been waiting patiently.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just wanted to state that for the record, due to a conflict of interest, I will be abstaining from voting on this decision.
Right. Anything else from the council now? Councilmember Lee.
I'm sorry, I don't know that I heard the answer to my second question, which is the requirements and the expectations for MWESB, given our recent conversations with DOJ and everyone else around the future contracts that need to come from this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much, Councilmember Lee. I think so we have our MWSB targets still in place. So we are having projects ensure that they are seeking to work to meet and achieve our targets. We are encouraging anybody who thinks that they need support for being able to meet those targets to bring on a contractor, a equity contractor to support that outreach. And I think, again, the idea here is conceptually, and I'm sure it makes sense to all, right? So if you only go to your friend all the time to get their business, then you don't think to go to everybody else. And I think so having some support to do some of that outreach to reach a broader group of contractors and subcontractors to expand the use and impact of our public investments through leveraging MWSB firms is the goal. And I think we're continuing to move that body of work forward, making sure that we're not having that those components as explicit gatekeeping, but having those as performance objectives. And we will are continuing to do all of the great work of tracking, refining, and updating our strategies around that. We have Love Johnson is our new equity and contracting analyst who is really driving that body of work. And I got an update from her yesterday, and it was really nice to hear that she's actively engaging with stakeholder groups on the contracting side and others to make sure that we're balancing all of the different pressures and realities, but also driving that forward. And I think, as Roberto was saying, as a newer contractor, a developer to us, this is a place where we don't have the depth of our data on their projects, but I think, again, it doesn't change the idea that those are our targets, and we are hoping to see meaningful efforts to ensure that those targets are met.
Okay, anything else from the council? Then are we ready for a motion?
So moved.
A
Second.
second? Okay, could we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair Hall. Councilmember DeFantorum. Still with us? Councilmember, we can't hear you. You're on mute. We'll loop back around. Councilmember Farrell.
Yes.
Chair Hall.
Yes.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
There you are. Councilmember DeFantorum.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Mena.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
And as previously stated, Councilmember Harris is abstaining from this vote. Councilmember Meehan.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
All righty. Thanks so much. Well, I believe this wraps up affordable rental housing for this month. And we move into the presentation from the Home Ownership Division. Director Giscombe, are you and your team ready? Let's see.
Good morning. Yes, we are.
Good morning. Okay. The floor is yours, sir.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Chair Hall, Deputy Director Yant, and esteemed council members. My name is Keeble Giscombe, and I have the privilege of serving as Director for Home Ownership. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today about our efforts to expand home ownership opportunities across Oregon, particularly rural communities, and I work to align home ownership program with the Affordable Rental Housing Division. First, to answer the question that was brought up several months ago about how do we intend to expand our outreach to rural communities. At OHCS, we recognize the unique challenges rural communities face in accessing homeownership opportunities. That's why our first step was to listen. We engaged directly with rural partners, heard their concern, used their feedbacks to redesign the LIFT subsidy structure, making it more viable for rural projects. These changes are already making a difference. So far, 40% of our pre-application for the LIFT NOFA now comes from rural communities. While this project progress is encouraging, we know there's more to do. To further strengthen our outreach and support, we're implementing several key initiatives. We're trying to deepen community engagement, where our staff have been actively participating in rural convenience and conferences. We participated in House in Oregon last year at LeGrand, and we're also scheduled to attend this spring also in Southern Oregon. We're building connection with other rural communities, and we are scheduled to participate with the Habitat for Humanity Conference this April, where we will host a networking hour specifically for rural affiliates, fostering collaboration and resource sharing. We're also expanding our presence with other divisions within our agency. As the Housing Stabilization Division embarks on rural visit this spring and summer, we're committed to ensuring homeownership staff are present as well. This includes visit with federally recognized tribes, local housing authorities, governments, and nonprofits to reinforce our commitment to hands-on support. We're also requesting increased dedicated resources in the governor's proposal budget for the next biennium. we have included funding for a new staff division, which will focus on outreach and technical assistance for rural, small, and culturally specific developers. With this added capacity, we can provide more direct support to communities eager to expand homeownership opportunities. In the next question, we are also figuring how to align homeownership with the affordable rental division. While we consistently and continuously seek opportunities to align homeownership program with affordable rental housing, we recognize that homeownership requires a distinct approach. Unlike ARH, homeownership developers operate with fewer funding resources, which is why we have not transitioned to the ORCA process. The LIFT program is designed to support shovel-ready, shared equity projects, and after careful legal review, we have determined that this structure currently should stay in place. However, with the availability of flexible general funds in the future, we can explore expanding our program offering and adjusting our strategies and our structure accordingly. Our program set-asides were developed through extensive stakeholder engagement to ensure that they're tailored to home ownership needs. While our set-asides differ from ARH this year, we have aligned with them in the past when it was feasible, and we remain open to future opportunities for alignment. That said, where alignments threaten our shared goals, we are eager to work together to make it a reality. As an example, we have worked alongside ARH to develop shared definition for rural and culturally specific organizations. We also now offer a cap additional subsidy for rural projects, and our per unit subsidy structure is based on bedroom counts, which is similar to ARH. Moving forward, we will continue seeking opportunities to streamline processes, definition, and program structures where it strengthens both homeownership and also the rental housing efforts. In addition to those two questions, I would like to also get the committee ready to hear a presentation from our Assistant Director, Mr. Rick Abrego, from the manufactured housing part. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kibo Giscombe. I'm Rick Abrego, Assistant Director from Manufactured Housing and Marine and Manufactured Housing Community Resource Center Manager. And good morning, Deputy Director Yant, Chair Hall, council members. I'd like to summarize the Manufactured Housing Committee report, which is located on page 13 of your packet. The report covers the activities of the committee from July 2023 to June 2024. I'd like to summarize the report as well as update the council on the Manufactured Housing Replacement Program, as well as an update on the HUD Price Program. The Manufactured Housing Advisory Committee was established by House Bill 2896 in 2019 to advise the Oregon Housing Community Services in matters of interest and concern related to manufactured housing and manufactured dwelling parks. The overall purpose of the committee is to support the preservation, improvement, and expansion of the manufactured housing as an important affordable housing resource for all Oregonians. For manufactured home park facilities, activities including identifying opportunities to maximize long-term affordability of the facilities, improving critical infrastructure, and improving opportunities for new affordable facility developments as an important affordable home ownership resource. Also, the program ensures lifelong affordability and housing stability for the homes of our program provides. Dollar for dollar, the housing stability and affordability in manufactured home replacement program preserves parks is a multi-general investment. The replacement program received $2.5 million in funding for the 23-25 biennium. The funds were allocated to 21 homes, 60 family members, with an average cost of $119,000 per home by September 2023. We finally closed the application process when we had over 100 applications for 21 replacements. Replacements funds were supplemented with funds from Energy Trust of Oregon. The 21 home replacements had been funded and located in 12 distinct counties in Oregon. The demographics of the replacements were as follows. 45% are in cooperative owned or nonprofit owned manufactured parks. 35 of the recipients are persons over the age of 60 years old. 15% of the program participants identify as people of color. 11% were veterans. 75% of the households are at or below 50% average median income. The replacement program accomplishes a multitude of housing stabilization, homeless prevention goals. As one of the OHCS's direct constituent service programs, the replacement program works on a one-to-one basis with owners of manufactured homes who are primarily at or below the 50% area median income. The program participants are often under imminent risk of losing their housing due to eviction from their manufactured home park because of the condition of their home, or due to their home being uninhabitable due to age or disrepair. Participation in the replacement program provides a permanent, safe, energy-efficient housing solution while keeping housing affordable for the families. Due to the nature of the replacement program of replacing homes that are in disrepair or almost uninhabitable, the program touches a combination of the homeownership preservation program, rental housing, stability program, and homelessness prevention program. Currently, there are approximately 1,067 manufactured home parks in Oregon, which include 46 preserved parks. There are approximately 140,000 manufactured homes within Oregon's borders, of which 80,000 are pre-1980 homes which require updating or repair or replacement. Some of the challenges that we faced in working with this program is that we knew we had $2.5 million to work with. $2.5 million equated to 19 to 21 replacement homes. As we move forward, this number will actually decrease because of the cost of construction, materials, and manufacturing. At minimum, we had to replace or look at replacing one home in all 36 counties of Oregon. We had to replace at least one home in the 46 nonprofit and co-ops. We estimated it would take us 2 bienniums to accomplish this. We reviewed the racial equity analysis tool to ensure that we address as many eligible applicants, including addressing equity and racial justice for historically marginalized and underserved communities, as well as persons with disabilities, veterans, and families of generational poverty. Additionally, the replacement program is one of OHCS's only programs that provides in-person, one-on-one program outreach, education, navigation through the system, assistance with their application through the project completion and through the project completion. This is important for marginalized communities and rural populations with the state who may struggle with timely applications and in a high demand of housing programs with limited funding. Our manufactured housing navigator partnered with Energy Trust of Oregon, who is fluent in Spanish, to locate families in need. Our website has documents in Spanish, and we can produce documents in other languages as is needed. We looked at the age of the home, the condition of the home, the family size. Is it a multi-generational home? Income, the ability of the owner to assist in financing of the new home. The program advocates for ADA modifications to new homes to ensure that the needs of the program participants and their family members are met. This is important for, again, marginalized and rural populations within the state who may struggle with timely applications due to the high demand. Lastly, we're constantly improving our program best practices to ensure that all Oregonian residents have access to apply to the program, that language or limited access of internet services or computers do not present barriers to understanding and accessing the program. This is an important factor to Oregon's BIPOC community, marginalized community, and the underserved communities. One last thing that I'd like to share about the manufactured home replacement program. Our team was moved by witnessing just how much these replacement homes changed the lives of the recipient families. What was more of a blessing was how much the park communities were moved as well. Manufactured dwelling parks residents know which homes are in their community are in disrepair or in need of replacement. What this program is showing the manufactured home communities is that the state of Oregon is aware of the manufactured dwelling park situation and cares about their living conditions and circumstances and is working toward improving their situation. Moving on to the HUD price update. As of this date, the HUD price award letter has not been received by the agency. The agency has not received any information as to when the award letter would be sent. The award letter outlines any changes or revisions made to the terms and conditions and restrictions already outlined in the original NOFA and application. The agency was awarded $3.5 million in HUD funds because of its manufactured replacement program and the Affordable Rental Housing Department manufactured dwelling park preservation programs already in place. The manufactured home department will incorporate the $6.75 million portion of the HUD funds for its manufactured home replacement program and will expand its program to include the repair program. We will partner with Oregon's community action agencies to identify pre-1976 manufactured homes in need of repair or replacement. This process is similar to the existing weatherization repair program. We hope to hear from HUD Price program as soon as possible, and we're ready to move forward with the program once the award letter is received. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have concerning the manufactured housing department.
Chair Hall, if I may, and
certainly.
Rick, thank you so much. Maybe I could just give a little bit of context to the council members as far as how the different programs and investments that Rick just described fit into the variety of manufactured housing kind of strategies that we have in the agency before we jump into questions. So just a little bit of context here. Rick, thank you so much for walking through that. These are relatively new programs that we just talked through. The council material also talks about a legislative advisory body that was created, which helped inform the programs that were just discussed, one of which was created by the legislature. This was our second biennium receiving the funding. It's $2.5 million, as was described there. And then we also applied for and were awarded this federal HUD Price funds, which we haven't yet got an award letter. And so once we have that, we'll be able to move forward with that. But those are very distinct investments that Rick and his team at OHCS and the homeownership team manages. In addition to, I know it was mentioned earlier today, there's a manufactured homes and marina kind of a dispute resolution group that we work with manufactured homeowners and parks and park owners to help support tenants in those parks. Just for context for the council, I think you all know this because there have been a number of transactions that have come across the years to the Housing Stability Council. Another area where we support manufactured homes is through our affordable rental housing development dollars, and specifically the preservation dollars. And so we know there are parks at risk of being converted and, to whether it be gentrification and development. And so the affordable rental housing team, through a variety of investments through those, has set aside in order to preserve parks. Those are often preserved as cooperatively owned parks, sometimes as nonprofit parks, but those will come. So that is another area that we support manufactured homes and the investments that our agency and the program that our agency is able to do. I think the third one that I just want to make sure to bring up to kind of paint the whole picture of where we intersect with manufactured housing is related to disaster recovery. We know from the Labor Day 2020 fires, it was, I think, 20 parks were lost in those fires, most of them in Jackson County, but certainly in Lincoln County and in Lane County as well. I think it was 1,500 plus individual manufactured homes were lost there. And in disaster recovery, the RE-Oregon programs, which is the federal CDBG DR programs, there's individual survivor facing manufactured home replacement. So if they had lost a home, manufactured home, they can have that home replaced as well. And so I just wanted to give a little bit of context because we dove into the manufactured homes that our homeownership team and programs that our homeownership team helps to administer and are impacting lives across the state. And I wanted to make sure the council understood kind of how that fits in to our broader manufactured housing strategy and programs at the agency.
Did anyone have any questions I could possibly answer for you?
Council? Anything? All right, well, appreciation is for the presentation and the good work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
You bet. Director Giscombe?
We don't have anything further. I really appreciate you all taking the time to hear what we're doing for homeownership. Thank you.
Thank you, and to your team. Thanks to everybody with the department, everybody on the council, all of you online. I think this may set some kind of record. I have been on this council now since 2018, and I don't remember a meeting this brief, but I'm sure it's just a lull, and we'll all have plenty of work ahead of us. And we'll see you all then. Until next month, we're adjourned.